So the seascape behind me is one of complete superlatives. Bass Rock, it is the world's biggest northern gannet colony. Surrounding it, loads of protected sites for birds because the Firth of Forth knocks it out of the park for seabirds. It is incredibly important.
In the summer months, that looks like thousands of gannets nesting and feeding their chicks on Bass Rock. It looks like puffins around on the grass verges across the islands. It looks like kittiwakes calling on the cliffs. These are absolutely incredible places for seabirds.
There's lots of safe places for them to breed. And at the moment, there's safe places for them to go out and feed.
So they're constantly going in and out of the Firth of Forth to these important foraging grounds, and they need to be able to access those to be able to survive.
So on the far horizon, you'll see here a few wind turbines have been put up. But at the moment, Scottish Government are sitting considering a huge application, and I mean enormous. It's a footprint 4 times the size of Edinburgh. It's called Berwick Bank. And for some time now, together with a whole lot of other conservation charities, we have been trying to convince Scottish ministers that the right thing to do is to turn down this application. Very recently, the First Minister said in a public speech about climate change that he thought nature had to be at the heart of any climate solution. And we know we need to tackle climate change. We know that seabirds need us to tackle climate change. And one way of doing that is through the installation of offshore and onshore renewable energy developments. So the impacts from Bericbank, we have literally never seen impacts of this scale ever before from a renewable energy development. It is population level impact on some of our most vulnerable and heavily protected birds.
These amazing places for seabirds could empty out, and future generations simply won't be seeing seabirds in the same way that we are today. I personally would be devastated to see some of these predicted impacts playing out on the colonies here in the Firth of Forth. These are really special places that I feel really privileged to be able to go to work on, and the species that we can see out there are incredibly special. So to see that start to disappear because of this development would be heartbreaking.
What's shifted recently is that a lot more applications have come in for other offshore wind farm developments, which are approximately the same size. They are big developments. They're going to be great for generating renewable energy, but they're going to be less damaging to seabirds. We know that there is quite a lot of capacity for renewable energy in the marine environment, but we also know it's going to have quite a lot of impact on our marine life and particularly on our seabirds. So the decision we're asking ministers to make at the moment is to try and maximise the amount of renewable energy we can get while minimising the impact on our marine environment. And that means not consenting Bericbank. We can still have a lot of offshore renewables, in fact probably more offshore renewables, more jobs and more seabirds if we don't say yes to Bericbank now, because it is so big and so damaging that it takes out so much of the kind of finite resource we've got in the marine environment. We simply won't be able to accommodate much more.
It's incredibly urgent and important that we address climate change for seabirds. So seabirds are threatened by climate change in a range of different ways, increased storms, rising sea temperatures, increased ocean acidification are already having massive impacts on our seabirds and on the wider marine environment that we desperately need to protect if we want to see these species surviving and thriving in the future.
With a whole lot of other NGOs, what we're trying to do at the moment is help Scottish Government make the right decision for renewables, for climate change, for seabirds and for our marine environment.
There are plenty of locations around the Scottish coast where offshore wind could be sited and have a much less dramatic impact on our seabird populations, where it can be seen as a really positive action for nature and for climate, and it can be part of the solution rather than another stress factor for seabirds that are already struggling.
And the right decision at the moment is not first come, first served. It's say no to Berwick Bank so that we can facilitate so much more for everything.